All right, hello, good morning. Let's see. So I thought I would just stream some Wrapup just for my own sake, because we did a few iterations, the client team, because we did a lot of exploration on how we wanted to build a project editor for CodeSandbox projects, and we didn't have like a perfect idea on how to do that. We just had some learnings from the previous version of CodeSandbox, and we knew that the team would be growing. We understood the complexity of what we were building, and so on and so on. So we made some suggestions, I guess, and that was related to first of all, not embracing a framework on top of React, but rather just embracing React itself, which we thought would have like lower threshold for people to get into. But at the same time, we couldn't just base things on the core, only on the core primitives of React, because we wanted to have a more predictable user experience, because we do a lot of complex asynchronous interactions and flows and so on. And also related to that, we also wanted to have good typing. So whenever we wrote logic, the logic understood the context of the state. So we didn't have a bunch of if statements all over. Now that's where React states comes in. And the idea about React states is that it was supposed to be like something we would add to a reducer whenever we needed to manage that kind of complexity. But for some reason, the whole thing kind of became about our state management and logic was a combination of like a feature would be a context provider, which exposes a reducer, which is built on React states. That became the only way to express state management and logic. And that's and then related to that, we also have, let me open the editor here. And on top of that, we also have what we call the environment interface, which is a good thing. I think I'm going to like make a talk on this or something. It's just at its core, an environment interface is just creating an interface around your application. What does your application need from its environment? It being third-party NPM packages, the browser API, it doesn't matter. It needs something from the environment, and if you build an interface on that, your application code will be a lot more explicit, because you actually say what you need instead of adopting to some generic API in the browser or from an NPM package. And no like magical strings, everything's typed and so on. But the thing about React states is that it manages event-based systems very well, because you can dispatch as many actions as you want, events/actions as you want into the reducer, and the reducer will always behave the way it's supposed to, related to its state. Which made us implement the environment interface as an event-based interface. So you don't call a method and it returns a promise. You just call a method and you subscribe to events, which is a totally valid pattern. It totally simplifies testing, because unlike promises that is forced to be async, events can be both async and synchronous. So all the tests could be written synchronously, which is a huge bonus. So we kind of got to this place where we kind of coupled all of this stuff together. But what we really want, and this is choosing a way to implement an application is tied to like the company as well. Like what state is the company and what do we want to encourage? And for us, it's important that we allow people to bring in their experiences, the tools they've been using, and be able to actually use them, not being forced into a very strict state management and logic framework, and not a pattern either. So what we did is that instead of having the features representing, as we can see here. So for example, we have the editor. So the editor feature is just a single reducer exposed from a context. Instead of doing that, we rather think of features as just a domain of the application, where we implement one or multiple hooks. That's the interface between the application and the features, is the hooks. And how those hooks are implemented, we have very little restrictions on that. So within a hook, you can use whatever tool you want. Like of course we have to be careful about like package size, but when it comes to, application bundle size, but when it comes to implementing like state management and logic within a hook, like it's hard to kind of go beyond the bundle size limits. But it allows us to have, like, the way you consume the hooks in the application is exactly the same. You just consume an API return from the hook. But now we're able to, as I said, like do whatever we want in the implementation of the hook. And I think that creates a good culture in terms of you feel more motivated because you can actually bring one of the tools that you're used to using. And you're responsible for some implementation. You need to create some state management and logic for that. You only have to adopt that this needs to belong to a domain of the application, and it needs to be a hook. That's the only thing you have to adopt. And beyond that, you're free to implement that hook however you want. And then other people reviewing that will learn about this new tool, how you can implement hooks, and then we have more of an organic way of moving forward. The constraints is more, app hook interface. But it's not that straightforward because you also, some hooks, so when you consume a hook in a component, you can think of it as like instantiating the hook. So if you have one hook which you consume in one component and you consume the same hook in another component, that's two different instances of the same hook. And very often we want these hooks to be like singletons. They should be shared across all components. But we don't want we want that to be agnostic to whatever tool you use to implement the hook, right? Certain tools like like SWR, for example, it is multi-instance when you consume a hook with SWR, but the way it's implemented, it has like shared cache between the hooks and stuff, I believe. Anyway, there are tools like that, but we can't depend on that. Like, we need a very strong concept of how do you create a hook that's going to be shared across all components. So exploring that, we built this little utility, and this could be a package on its own. It's like super simple. It's called CreateHooksProvider, and this is all the code for it. It's how many lines? 20 lines of code. Not even that, there's some typing and stuff. And the way it works is that we have a test refactor of one of the domains, which is branch management. So comparing that to the editor, where we have like a reducer, the types, and the index file, and the feature where it all comes together, we just have an index file, which in this case exports a provider, because actually both of these hooks should be like singletons. But then we just export the hooks as if they were implemented as plain hooks. And if we take a look at the provider first, the provider is just using our little utility called CreateHooksProvider, and you give it what props does the provider take. And then this exports, of course, the provider, if we want to use the consumer component, and it exports this thing called register hook. So if we move into the use branches list, the way this actually works is that instead of just exporting a function for the hook, we use the register hook utility to create the hook. So what's interesting about this is that, first of all, when you define the hook, it's typed with the properties passed to the provider. Because this is interesting, right? If you have hooks that are like multi-instance hooks, like whatever component consumes it, it gets its own instance. Of course, you can just pass whatever arguments you want to the hook. But if you have a hook that's like like it's shared between components, you can't have multiple components passing different arguments into the hook. It needs to be consolidated. And the way that's consolidated here is that the register hook function ensures that this hook will actually receive all the props that goes into the provider. So you pass the props to the provider at the top, and whatever hooks are registered with that provider will actually get those properties. So this is actually typed to the props of the provider. And now you implement this as a plain hook and you return whatever you need from it. And then that becomes the hook. Now, what happens under the hood here is that it doesn't actually return this function directly. What it returns is a function that uses the context of the provider to provide this hook, which is actually being called inside the provider. That's the difference. And it's actually super, super nice. Like, we had a few iterations on how we could express this. And I think this is by far, at least this is the best we've come up with. Because what you want is, first of all, you want to emphasize that these hooks receives the props from the provider. So having this register hook function enforces that, because this is already typed, right? I don't have to type this again. So it's explicit that you're consuming the hook through the provider by registering the hook to the provider. You get it's emphasized that the arguments that is available to you are the actual props passed into the provider, which is great here. And also, when we actually define the hook, we just export the hook as if we implemented the hook as normal. As other solutions that we tried, you had to like import the hook into some place, give it to the provider, and then re-export it later. And then you had like name collisions because you were overriding the initial hook from the other hook. It was possible to import the hook from multiple places, so it wasn't ensured that you were using the correct one. And so on. So this just tackles all of those challenges. And yeah, maybe this is like worth putting on NPM. But anyways, that's how this works. Yeah, so the only thing we're kind of doing now is we're just finalizing the alignment on this. And then we're just going to continue splitting up our existing domains into multiple hooks, instead of having that single reducer exposed. And when we're done with that, we can go into each hook and we can start like re-implementing the hooks with more tailored tools for the job. What we also discovered is we've been having like huddles where we discuss like generally how we think about how we do coding and collaboration on the client team. And we started writing these guidelines on how to like write the code. And then something popped up, which I'm personally very excited about. It's that as part of this PR, we actually have a guideline on what the intention is with the features folder, what is like a feature hook, and so on and so on. So that when you actually go in here and you implement something, the guideline for implementing that is very close to you. You can actually click a file in the folder where you're implementing to get some help. And the same goes for like components. We could have the same for the environment interface. And what's really, really interesting about this is that, first of all, it gets versioned with the code. So when we make changes to our guidelines, it's actually part of the history. But even better, we just have this general front-end development guideline thing in every PR. And me personally, I never click it because it's so vast, right? I don't know how it kind of relates to this PR. So I will kind of go in and read everything. It's hard to kind of connect the dots. But what we can do is we can create an action, a GitHub action. So whenever we create a PR, we know which folders actually has guidelines. So we can make a match. So we look at all the files changed. And if any of those paths matches one of our guidelines, we'll actually automatically include the guideline here. So you know that in this PR, you should verify that these guidelines has been met, which is pretty awesome in my mind. Anyways, so I'm like super happy about how this wound up. Like if you follow the first iterations on this, like doing a year of exploration in a code base, people joining along the way and kind of sitting down together and try to kind of resolve how we want to move on without completely disrupting how we write the code and everything. It's super difficult. But yeah, so I'm super happy about like where we landed on this, given that everyone agrees with this. Because it's not disruptive at all. It's very easy for us to move on with this pattern. We're even able to extend this pattern to cover the dashboard as well, because we have also these hooks, which is actually related to the dashboard. But that means that we could also include those hooks in the actual domains of the application. So it doesn't matter if you're in the project editor or you're in the dashboard, you can consume hooks across both of them, which I think will be more and more prominent as the dashboard might start using features from the project editor, like talking to the development environment and stuff like that. And the other way around as well. Like inside the project editor, you want to have some quick ways to do dashboard related functionality. Anyways, so it feels to me that it's like coming together. Cool. So I consider that like the wrap up of those iterations. And then we have this other thing we were doing. It's Timsy. So I'm going to bring up the docs. We were playing around with this light machine. So for me, Timsy is like, yes, related to what I just talked about. For me, like React states is, how do I think about this? So React states is very elegant when you, so for example, if you have Redux. Now, since React states is just a detail in how you implement a reducer, combining React states with something like Redux is kind of perfect, because then you get the benefit of Redux being like this global state store and all the stuff you get with Redux, but then you're able to make your reducers more predictable in terms of state transitions. But when it comes to the pattern we are landing on now, I think Timsy works better for us, because it's just because all the hooks are very individual, right? We don't have this global state management thing. We just have the hooks. And since Timsy is so more to the point on expressing the states and the transitions, like you don't have all this typing. Like I did a test refactor of one of the hooks, and it's, did I move away from it? Yeah, so for example, branch. Maybe we could do that as like a... So here you can see like we're doing a lot of stuff here. We even split it up into its own file, the reducer, because you have so much typing. But with Timsy, this will be like half the code. So yeah, and even yeah, it will be like half the code. So you would rather put it straight in here. Anyways, so I have a feeling that okay, we're going to use React states as long as we have to, like as we're kind of moving towards hooks and re-implementing the hooks. But beyond that, yeah, I'm not sure. Anyways, that's some learnings and reflections. But we were playing around with this light machine. Now, playing with this light machine, it made me realize something. So I think there's a bug here. So you have the pedestrian states. You have this event coming in, ped countdown. And whenever that event hits, it changes the state of these pedestrian states. And then you have the actual like traffic lights, which is like green, yellow, and red. And then you have this timer event coming in from the outside. And whenever it hits, it moves between yellow, red, green, and back to green, yellow, and red. Now, the thing is, you also have this power outage. So there's some practical questions I have, but also like code-wise, what would happen here? So let's take the practical stuff later, but what if we get the power outage event, right? So there's something that triggers that from the outside, and then it moves to red and the blinking state on the pedestrian state. But what if you now get a timer event? Like, then it just moves to green again. So like, I would expect power outage to actually put the traffic lights into a very explicit state, so that if you actually got a timer event, it wouldn't move back to green again, right? It doesn't make sense to me. This seems to be like a bug, the way this is modeled. And then you can question like, what the hell does even power outage mean? So in practical terms, if there's a power outage, can it even be blinking? Like, there's no power to blink. Maybe it runs on a battery. And then if there's a power outage, does that mean that the timer also stops? So you won't get the timer event if there's a power outage. But that's very implicit, isn't it? And so I kind of dived so deep into this that I've been almost starting questioning life itself. So I don't think it really makes that much sense, the way this is modeled. But no matter, let's ignore all of that, and then we can look at the thing. I did a little bit more here. So now we have, let's close this. So now we have our traffic light, where we have our pedestrian states as described in the documentation, the pedestrian machine as described in the documentation, and we have the actual light states, where when we're on red, we create a pedestrian machine out of that. And then we have our power outage, our power restored, and the actual light machine. Yes. So as you can see, it's actually moving between the lights now, because we are subscribing whenever we are within green, red, or yellow. This timer will be running every 5 seconds. It triggers the timer event, which flips the lights. And then we have another subscription on the red state. So whenever we move to red, we every second we trigger the ped countdown event for the pedestrian states. And whenever we move out of red, we clear that interval, and we also dispose of the pedestrian states. So what's missing here in the thingy is that when we are on red, so let's see, where's the red? Okay, so what we want to do, we want to add an additional thing here. I'm going to make this quite simple. So when we are on red, we are going to yeah, maybe we can be more explicit. We can just, well, let's do this. So sorry, I'm sorry. I'm still not well. Like every time I go to bed, I get like a super sore throat. It's really weird. And I wake up, I feel like shit, but then like 10 minutes later, after a coffee, I feel just fine. But then I get like super tired and dizzy, like at the end of the day, and then, yeah, I don't know what's happening. It's weird. Just 2 seconds. Sorry. Anyways, so when we're on red, we actually want to match on the pedestrian. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't think about this. Yeah, I did think about this. We're going to test something I wanted to verify. So when we are, yeah, maybe let us just inline this. So if the state is red, we don't really have to use that matcher. We are going to show the pedestrian, let's call it lights. And then what we're going to pass in is the pedestrian machine, which is like this or null. Okay. So let's try this now, because we are going to try, this is just me playing around with Timsy to kind of see where it can go. The core of Timsy works really, really well, just like, yeah, I discovered something else as well that I want to show you. But anyways, let's finish this. So it's going to take a pedestrian machine, and that pedestrian machine would be, how will we type this? Yeah, I haven't thought about this. We don't really have a, does Timsy have a state for this? Or sorry, a type for this? Can I look into, yeah, so we have, yeah, so we have state machine creator. But that's not it either. No, it's actually, yeah, it's state machine. But you give it the, yeah. No, we don't really have a good type for this yet. So let's fake it. How do we fake it? So what we want, what we would really want here, just like we have the, here, we have the states type of pedestrian states. We should really also have something for the, yeah, something like machine. So you could say like machine type of pedestrian machine, just like you have states. But we don't have that. So what we need to do is we have to do type of return, let's see, return type of pedestrian machine. I think that's what we need to do for now. So the thing I want to test is that it's also possible, Pedestrian. Well, now we have state events. We also have use machine, where we actually pass in just a machine. Like the other signature, as we can see down here. Yeah, sorry, that we see up here, is that we give use machine a callback. That means you can actually instantiate the machine, and whenever the hook reconciles, it's still the same machine that's running, unless you change like the dependency array here. That will trigger like a creation of a new machine. But in this case, we're just passing a machine, which means that it will just, whatever machine you pass in, that's the machine that will be used. So in this case, we should have everything here. And let's just do this very simply by style. What was the... Let's just use this stuff. And background color. Let's... yeah, let's not use a background color, but what's it called? Border, like 2 pixels solid black or something. And then what's the thingy with the thingy? Border box. Oh, size, border size. Ah, what the hell is the thing? Border sizing, box sizing, border box. Yeah, that's the thing. So here I'm just going to set the state. Wow, that didn't look very well. Let's run and make the... Can I flex this? Would that work? Yeah. And then we'll align items, center, justify content, center. Font size is like 12 pixels or something. This is nice. Font weight is bold. A little bit smaller. Okay, let's see how this actually... Oh! Yeah, this is interesting. Did you see that? It didn't actually change the... It didn't actually change the state. Did it? Walk. Wait, stop. Oh no, it is working. Sorry. Just moved a bit fast, I think. And maybe we should okay. Let's do this. So we'll return that, and if it's like this, it's going to be gray, or not gray, but okay, let's keep it black. But we don't have any text there. So it's always there, but there's just nothing inside it. Oh, let's make it a little bit, god damn it, now I'm into this stuff. God damn it. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to match on the state of this thing, and we're going to say when you're walking, we're going to say green. When you are waiting, we're going to say yellow. And when you're stopping, we're going to say red. Then we also have blinking. I guess that should also be red. That looks like shit. Perfect. Okay, so we're like green, yellow, red, blah blah blah. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click this outage. Yeah, you saw that? The timer went back in, right? So even though I do an outage, like the next time the timer triggers, like we're right back where we are. So that's kind of what I'm wondering. Is there, if like Xstate handles that, then that is way too implicit for me. Like reading the example, there's nothing here that indicates that when you have a power outage, that you don't get this timer event. That puts it right back into green. Yeah, I think that's to me that's super interesting. Anyways, so what I would do here is I would definitely have an explicit power outage state, so that even though we still got timer events, nothing would actually happen until you got power back, and it will move back into red. So let's kind of fix that. Yeah, not here. We have to define it first. So we have outage, doesn't return anything. Here we go. And then we would have, and then we would actually have power restored. So let's move that here. Yeah, by the way, I've started doing this instead. That's a nice power outage. That's a nice one from my colleague Gianmarco. So that you better see the difference of what are states and what are actual events. That's nice. Yeah, so one thing you can argue, like not making it declarative, is that, so what you see here is like you have power outage, and you really want that to be part of green, yellow, and red, but you don't have any way to define that the other way around. So you say that this action should be part of this state. You always say this state needs this, this event, and this state also needs this event. I guess it's the same. Well, it is the same here. You have to redefine like timer, timer, timer. Though here you can have like a high level power outage at the top, but I think that's more how you like nest things. Yeah, anyways, interesting. Yeah, so this would be a power outage, and power restored. Okay, so let's kind of fix this to how I would do it. Or think it should be done. So yeah, so when we have, and this shows so well, like now I added a new state, and since I'm using the matcher in the UI, I know exactly where in the UI I need to fix things. So when we have an outage, so let's say that these should actually become I don't know, is there something called like light gray or something? Okay, let's just make them black. So we have an outage, and the thing is, yeah, so one thing I didn't fix is, so in this case, this is actually, we can change this now. You can never pass in. It actually defines how the pedestrian state should be, but here it's actually going to be blinking, right? So that means we should also go down here. So it's not only on the red state that we now have the pedestrian machine, we also have it on the outage. So if we change this to become a matcher, match state, let's see. Can I do this? So we have on red, we want to do the pedestrian pedestrian. God damn it, pedestrian. And we want to do the same thing on blinking. And then in any other state, we just want to render out that thing. Oh, wait, blinking? Oh, yeah, that's interesting. It doesn't actually... This should be outage. That's interesting. I think it's running an old version of TypeScript. Oh, I think... Oh, that's interesting. When we have this, you go to the default one. You can actually add whatever you want there. Oh, I didn't test that. Yeah, I might consider that a bug. Anyways, so now we have our thing running. Yellow, red, yeah, and I think we're passing in here. We don't need to pass in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is kind of funny. When it starts, yeah, I wonder what's happening there. It doesn't actually run the thing. Oh, this might be a bug. Let's check this. So when we enter red, yeah, I wonder what's happening here. It's as if it's not firing this, but it should. Walk. Oh, I know what it is. It's the fucking strict mode. It's the fucking strict mode. You see that it runs the what the fuck twice, and that's strict mode. Firing the subscription twice to avoid side effects, which is kind of weird to me, because that's the whole point of use effect, is to have side effects. So I haven't quite understood that. But what happens is that since this runs twice, we dispose of the machine, which makes a lot of sense. But since it fires it twice, which is not like actual app behavior, the second time this runs and starts the counter, nothing happens because we disposed of the thing. Anyways, so what if we have an outage? Boop. Nothing. Oh, did I? Oh, sorry. I didn't actually handle the outage, I think. Power outage. It should go to outage, of course. Sorry. So let's try again. OMG, we have an outage. Shouldn't that be blinking? Oh, we're not using this anymore. Yeah, this isn't working, is it? Goes on outage. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we do have to. Oh, sorry. God damn it. Yeah, I resonated. And did I? No, we're going to. Oh, I know. I think I know. Oh, this is interesting. What actually happens here now? Because I'm going to outage which means in the app on Outage, we're now using pedestrian lights, but we have a new machine. So this is kind of what I want to test, if I have implemented it correctly. Because when we have an outage, we have our pedestrian lights, which should now have a new machine, which should actually like reconcile this. But it doesn't do that. So maybe we could fix that because I really want to keep on exploring this. How much time do we have? We have a little bit of time. Let's take a look at the code. By the way, it's nice we have, do we have Timsy here? We have environment variables now in CodeSandbox projects. So that means we can I can start publishing my projects as well. Let's see. Yeah, let's take a look at the code first. I don't think I even wrote a test for this. Probably not, since it's not working. So let's look at how that thing works. So we have use machine. Pass machine might be... Okay, so if we just pass a machine, the machine is the pass machine. And what it does is that oh, I know what it is. This use state. Oh, yeah. I wonder, is it a way there a way to invalidate use state? As you see here, these subscriptions, they will actually... oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I think we need a more appropriate way to do this. Because what happened is that I gave it a new machine and I expected it to reset the state and everything. But that doesn't actually happen because the state is only set the first time. So we need to like invalidate use state. And the subscription will dispose of itself, and this use transition effect will also change its reference to the new machine. But will the existing... Yeah, exactly. And every React use effect... oh yeah, this also needs to have the machine. Okay, so that also needs to have the machine because it changed. But how do you invalidate the use state? That's interesting. How would you do that? Oh, we need to make a use effect hook. Okay. Okay, let's try to fix this. Let's fork it. Fork it up. So what we needed to do is we needed to add the machine here, and this makes sure that any, and this should actually be called use subscribe. That makes sure that any existing use subscribe will also like dispose of themselves, which they should, because now we're pointing to a new instance of a machine. And then actually we need to have another effect here. Set state machine get state. And yeah, that's also a thing I want to validate just for myself. Is that if I now do this, and that means that it will kind of reset the state again also on the initial machine. Yeah, I guess we need to do the same here. But I don't think the set state will trigger when it's the same reference. But I'm not sure if that's true for this signature or if we actually have to do this, if it's only valid for this. That's something I want to understand, React use state. Because they do have a note on it, I think. Unlike the set statement founding, as you said, doesn't emerge after you can replace it by coming blah blah blah. Yeah, if your update function returns that. Okay, so I think you have to use a function. If your update function returns the exact same value as the current state, the subsequent re-render will be skipped completely. Okay, so to be absolutely safe here, we need to do this. So that since we set the state initially, we don't want that to happen again, right? So what we do is that we do this callback function, which grabs the state again, but since it's the exact same object, it won't actually trigger the use state. Okay, so this should actually fix the thing. Where the hell are the environment variables, by the way? Huh. Is it here? That's funny. Where are the environment variables? That wasn't very discoverable. Anyways, let me push this. Is it on the dashboard? I just have to check it to see if I can actually find it. So if I go to my project here, no. I thought we shipped it. That's interesting. Yeah, I have to ask about that. Huh. Anyways, okay, cool. So this is nice. This was some good wrapping up. And yeah, so the reason the thing didn't change was because the hook wasn't implemented correctly, but it should be now. So I'll publish an update to that. And I guess what we'll focus on moving forward is, I think maybe I really want to, now that we're aligning on how to approach our features, I really want to spend my time on fixing those. So maybe we could do that moving forward. We'll refactor some existing features, create some PRs. Maybe we'll also go in and change some existing features, maybe try Timsy on some of the hooks and so on. So that's one thing. And then, yeah, so that's one thing I want to do. Another thing is that the edit PR proof of concept, I'm actually working on it now to make the client work again. It's not that much work. So next week I'll invite Gianmarco and hopefully Ze, our one of our amazing designers, hopefully wants to join us. So we can do like a stream of how we collaborate with designers. And then I'm also going to implement a new feature for Family Scrum. We have a new concept now, which is working really well. My partner got completely sick and tired of me not helping out more, which I can understand. But the thing for me is like I can't just randomly start doing stuff. I need some structure to it. So what we decided to do is that in the Family Scrum app, we have a lot of things that needs to be done, but it's not like recurring things. So what we did now is that we added every tiny little thing that needs to be done in the house, like vacuum, I guess that's the verb. Like vacuuming, cleaning the kitchen, just freaking putting toilet paper in the bathrooms, like a towel to dry your hands, and like all those tiny things. It's just a task in Family Scrum. And when we do like our week plan session, where we also did a hack. So when Oscar is taking his nap on Sunday, we give Emma free roam with a Nintendo Switch, and my partner and me, we sit down and we plan the next week. So what we do is that I'm looking at the list and like vacuuming. So okay, I'll do that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for example, and then I'll fix the toilet paper on Wednesday. This sounds so silly, but for me this is really important. So this week, for example, I check the app every like Monday and yesterday, and I'll check it tomorrow as well. Like, what do I need to do today? And then we give each other time to do that after dinner. Like that, then you get like an hour to get that shit done. And now what we're going to implement though is that the to-dos are really awesome because they are like a description, but you can add like a date to them, you can add a time to them, you can even add like a checklist to them. So they're very generic in that sense. But now I'm going to allow you to add points to them. So for example, vacuuming gives me 20 points or whatever. And then that's going to be one thing, like adding a point to do. And then we're going to add like a reward page where we say when you get like 2,000 points, so you can add rewards, like you set the number of points and it gives a reward. And that can be anything, like me going down, take my bike down to town, have a beer, for example. That will be an example of a reward. And what's really cool about this is that when we actually do that planning, we go through the planning section of the app where we actually plan the next set of to-dos. But at the top, I'm going to list all the to-dos that has rewards, like points related to them that were performed the previous week. So you will actually see, so for example, I was vacuuming on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then that to-do will be at the top of our next week planning, and it will highlight the number of points. And then I can't do anything about that, but my partner can click a button on that to-do and say, yeah, thumbs up, Christian actually did this. And then that adds to my points. And then I can go into the reward store and kind of buy myself whatever. And this seems like, why the hell make so much of it? It's just fun, right? It's just a fun thing to implement and play around with. And the thing is, this app is actually working for us. I haven't actually used it for a while, since Oscar was born. But now we're really getting back into it, and it makes a huge difference for us. So let's implement that together. Okay, that's it for me for now. And this was nice. We wrapped up some things, got some new ideas, and tomorrow we're going to like a family cabin thing. So I won't be able to stream, but hopefully I'll get the edit PR thing ready to invite both Gianmarco and Ze to the brainstorming, I guess, on how to do it. So that's it for now. Have a nice weekend. Talk to you later.